Well, the opposition says it's a gas tax. The Prime Minister insists it will ultimately bring electricity prices down. The government's proposed a levy on electricity companies to help pay for a $1 billion liquid gas import facility to back up power supply during dry years. But as Zane Small reports, there are concerns the cost will be passed on to households at a time when the cost of living is increasingly the main concern of voters.
Auckland Central has more than 55,000 votes up for grabs, and voters we spoke to today shared a common concern: the rising cost of living.
It's really hard to keep up with all the increases that are happening in the supermarket, in the petrol stations. So when you see your salary kind of stay the same and everything else is going up.
It is too much high right now.
It's very difficult to get by.
The latest Taxpayers Union Courier poll shows the cost of living is increasingly the main concern of voters at 34.9%, up 7.4 points on the previous poll. And it seems to reflect the fact that while prices aren't rising as much as they were in the immediate aftermath of COVID, they are still rising and haven't come down since inflation peaked a couple of years ago. Would it sway your vote?
Yeah, absolutely.
The government's solution to high electricity prices is to establish a liquefied natural gas or LNG facility in Taranaki to eventually back up power supply during dry years when renewable energy is scarce.
A shortage of energy supply pushes up power prices for New Zealand households and businesses.
The facility would cost upwards of $1 billion, so the government is proposing a levy on electricity companies of between $2 and $4 per megawatt hour to recover the costs. The opposition says that cost will then be passed on to consumers, but the government says once the facility is up and running, it's expected to reduce electricity prices by $10 per megawatt hour, so a saving sometime in the future.
The advice that we've had as a function of doing the LNG import facility, New Zealand households can expect power bills to be $50 lower.
It's not going to save households money. Imposing a new tax on every household in the country is going to cost households more.
And that new tax, as Chris Hipkins calls it, now has a moniker.
A new gas tax, a new gas tax, a new gas tax.
This is a terrible move by the government and offers a free hit to Christopher Hipkins.
The right-leaning Taxpayers Union is also calling it a tax.
Taxpayers are smart enough to know adding an extra $40, $50, perhaps even $100 onto your electricity bill through a levy or a tax is not going to make it cheaper.
Do you like the idea of paying a bit more now so that we can pay less later?
Yeah, it's really hard because you don't want to pay more now, but I mean, I've got children, so I also think about them.
Yes.
Selfishly, I'd say no.
Oh, the future's a while away. I got to deal with today, you know. I got to pay my bills today.
That's why campaigning on energy security for tomorrow may be a tough sell to voters today.
Well, our senior political correspondent, Jenna Lynch, joins us now from Parliament. Kia ora, Jenna. So the government actually spent the day clarifying whether or not there is in fact a tax on households involved. So are we any clearer?
Short answer, no. Firstly, it wasn't a tax, it was a levy. Then the energy and finance ministers started arguing that it wasn't a levy after all. By sort of midway through the day, we got back to it is a levy, but only on power companies. Then the coalition partners jumped in and called it a tax and a levy, one apiece. And by the end of the day, the only sort of clarity that we have on the situation is it's very, very clear the government totally botched the comms on this big time. The government, by the end of the day, seemed to be nailing the line that it will produce lower power prices in the long term. But that messaging has really been lost in this tax levy charge circus. And that is really a problem of the government's own making, because it managed to produce a figure of how much households would save when this facility is built. It works out to that $50 Christopher Luxon mentioned there is per year, so don't go and spend that all at once. But they couldn't produce a figure of how much that levy would be costing households. That is likely to be just as minor, but it has left them wide open for speculation as to what it may be. The tax debate seemed to have really caught government ministers off guard, which it probably shouldn't have, given that the tax is a levy is a tax tactic. It seems to read straight from the National Party opposition playbook.